Hi everyone, and welcome to Survivor Reborn's podcast series. I'm your host, Jenny Millward, and I'm joined today by AJ and Matt of the Survivor Reborn team. Today our very special guest is Stella from Stelloon, whose walkthroughs and resources I'm sure you're all really familiar with. Stella, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and how long you've done it for?
Sure. I basically write walkthroughs and do game help and also do a lot of social media outreach. And my main website is tombraiders.net. So if you need game help, come on over.
Are going to be in yeah, all these links are going to be in the description. So everybody who hasn't heard of Stella, and let's be honest, you're probably living on Mars if you haven't, then you know where to go. AJ and Matt, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and what role you play in the Survivor Reborn team?
Yep, I am the co-founder of Survivor Reborn with Lori. I was brought on pretty much around the same time the reboot came out. And now we're pretty much here trying to, reach out to more of the fans. So Matt?
Yeah, I've only been with the team maybe about 6 months or so, when AJ caught one of my blogs where I was lamenting the state of the current Tomb Raider series, and he reached out to me and invited me to come on board. I met the team virtually, and we seemed like a really good fit. So yeah, really happy to be with the team. But I'm just a staff writer effectively, and about 6 months time now.
I'll say, so Survivor Reborn has been going for about 5 years now, and Stella, compared to us, we're still finding our way through the Cambodian tutorial level.
Babies.
We're the babies of the group.
Only tiny.
TombRaiders.net has been online since 1999, but I had a free site before that, which is now 20 years ago this spring. So it's been a while.
Well, I think if anybody's qualified to talk about the fandom and the Tomb Raider community in general, yeah, we're looking at you. Okay, so today we really wanted to kickstart our podcast series by talking about the fandom in general and the Tomb Raider community, which, as you know, now is probably into its 22nd year. 22nd year, because Tomb Raider 3 came out 20 years ago. Oh my god. So there's a great deal of changes that the community has seen, and we've had 2 reboots of the series, not to mention 2 rebooted movie franchises in that time. So there's a hell of a lot of diversity in the Tomb Raider community. So it's a bit of a dishonour to call it just one community. Stella, tell us a bit about what you have perceived in terms of the community changing over that period of time and the way people have come and gone, and maybe each time a reboot has come out, what effect has that had on the community?
The community obviously has evolved as social media has evolved. Excuse me. Back in the day, there were fan sites, but they were few and far between. There was a Usenet news group. I don't know if any of you guys remember Usenet, but that used to be a thing.
A little bit before my time.
And, a few forums, some more long-lasting than others. And I think that even, people say things have gotten really bad, and we can address that later on. But in truth, there have always been ups and downs, and there has always been division, and there has always been trolls, and there have always been people who agreed and disagreed with, various changes. So I think maybe with each reboot, like when Legend came out, and then when the 2013 game came out, there may have been a spike, just because whenever there's something new, there's always going to be reaction, both positive and negative. But I think to say that what's going on now is somehow new or different or extreme is probably not the case. It's just we see it more because social media makes us, more up in each other's faces where we might not have been before.
And what kind of perception has that been, the most recent change that you're talking about?
I think the most recent change probably came with this last reboot and has just continued. And I think there are a lot of people who are fans of the classic games who are unwilling to, be more open-minded about the new ones. And I think that's fine. I don't mean that in a critical way, like someone is right and someone else is wrong. I just feel like both factions, classic fans, Legend fans, reboot fans, there are a few more vocal people who are very intolerant of the other groups. And most people are fine. Most people are okay. Most people are welcoming. Most fans are happy to, choose their own favorites and, are glad to agree to disagree, as it were. So, yeah, that's my perception.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be my take on it, in that most fans are either extremely tolerant or just prepared to disagree. Politely, as you say, agree to disagree. It is just a minority, but an extremely vocal minority that on all sides, whether they're classic fans, whether they're Lao era or the newest reboot, every single camp will find something that it really hates about the other camps, and in some cases just won't shut up about it. And probably the rest of us are sort of sat there thinking, you know what, just get over it. Come on, grow up. Let everybody enjoy what they enjoy without getting personal, without trolling them. We need more of that attitude, I think, in the community. AJ, what's sort of your perception of how the community has changed in this sort of time?
Well, I know it majorly changed around, the time Core Design ended up leaving after Angel of Darkness, but for me, it didn't really start to get bad until Underworld. It was right when IDOS were, I guess you could say they were being bought out, when the rumors were going around, WB wanted them and all that. Majorly on Tomb Raider forums, like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. Like, it felt like the division got worse when the DLC came for Underworld.
With the Lara's Shadow and Beneath the Ashes, yeah.
And a lot of people don't really bring that up anymore, which is kind of ironic, because everybody was yelling about, the exclusivity deal with the Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is also what got the poison flowing a little bit more. But I don't know, I think it comes down to fans are feeling alienated based on what they play on, and because of business decisions that, we have no control over, but it feels like they're not listening to us, because it seems like they would rather see the money signs versus, hearing what we have to say, which is, fine. It's a business at the end of the day. But there's only so many times the fans could feel screwed over before, they have to release, they have some kind of outlet for it.
Yeah. Do you think that social media, I mean, YouTube only came out in 2008, I think. So, these social media platforms to discuss this sort of thing more easily and more openly and to a larger audience, do you think that has actually helped fans find common ground with these complaints that they have?
Honestly, I think it made it worse. The forums in general, I've noticed they changed drastically, like I said, around the time Underworld was finished. But Twitter, the fact that we could just go on Twitter now and use a hashtag, use that Tomb Raider hashtag, and people are going to find you and pretty much jump down your throat right away. And that's what gets me anymore. It's not about a civil discussion. People can't really have it. They can't respect people's opinions. It's just, you have to like it their way or you're going to get trolled.
So, but I suppose, and Matt, you might be able to back me up on this one. I suppose that the same pattern of behaviour can be seen basically across the board in any subject. It doesn't necessarily confine itself to Tomb Raider. That things like Twitter and Facebook, but Twitter especially, has become more of a platform for stating your opinion as loudly as possible, rather than, as AJ has just said, getting into an involved discussion.
And it's very difficult as well, of course, with Twitter because of the character limit. I know they've recently extended it, but it's very hard to get your opinion across. And if you've got quite a nuanced opinion, you want to discuss it at length, Twitter really isn't the best platform for it. You just get people shouting a little bit that can be misinterpreted, and then everybody will dogpile. And I've had people who are expressing their opinion at me, and they actually have the same opinion, but they felt that they're disagreeing with me. They think I've said something completely different just because I might have worded my tweet poorly, but it's that instinct to immediately get hostile and dogpile that's something that I think has been really synonymous with Twitter and the fact that these things are all going through there. I do think it's worth mentioning that, as you said, it isn't exclusive to Tomb Raider. It isn't even just exclusive to video games. If you look at discussions about comic books or, you know, people's interpretation of different canons within whatever series, you do get these divisions. So I do think the reboots have had a big part to play in people feeling, as AJ said, alienated and feeling like what they believe the Tomb Raider series is no longer relevant, or that it no longer counts in some way. I do think that part of that has been pushed by the developer, quite honestly. I think Crystal Dynamics in particular have been casually dismissive of the classic games in a way that has emboldened fans who also would rather it carry on in a specific direction. But then, of course, you've got classic fans who will respond with typical gatekeeper style lines of, oh, you can't be a proper fan if you've not played the originals, which of course we know that's completely stupid. But it comes from both sides, and I don't know where to start to get these problems fixed. As you say, it's discussing it and getting your cards on the table is absolutely the thing to do, but it's finding a platform where people can actually do that at length and express themselves fully, and Twitter really isn't the way for that. Social media in general, I don't think, is the way forward for that.
It's interesting you say that, because it's actually a tweet or a thread of tweets from Stella that prompted this as our podcast topic today. Because this is a few days ago now, but I noticed you, Stella, were talking about this exact topic, that the problem of antagonism within the fandom, and of the sort of cliqueism, and fans basically just not having any common ground. And it was almost like a rallying cry of, okay, guys, we have a problem. Now, how do we fix it?
That was my idea. Yeah.
What kind of response did you get from that?
I got a mixed response. I got a lot of likes. People just recognized that was an issue and should probably be discussed. But after seeing so many people complaining, like Matt was saying, complaining, and then just taking a stance and just being so rigid and not being able to hear what anybody else was saying. And I think, like he said, the echo chamber of Twitter makes that worse rather than better. But I didn't want to say this is right, this is wrong, because I don't feel like I have I'm not really part of just the classics or just the Legend era or just the reboot era. And I love them all. And I want everybody to be happy and be friends. And I just want to know, how do we do this? And I think the upshot from people responding to me was, a few people said that the developers do bear some responsibility, but the vast majority of people said it's on us to make our community the way we want it to be. And I really believe that.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, the developers do have a massive responsibility, when they do decide, okay, we need to reboot the series and go in a new direction. They do have to.
How do we present it in a way that will be welcoming to the people who have been fans all along? Yes, I get that.
Yeah, how do we honor the source material and the people who love it without taking that as an absolute rigid cage that we can't move out of in any direction? Because, of course, as you say, it's been over 20 years now. The series has got to evolve somehow, some direction. We love the originals so much, but it would be impractical to be limiting the official developed games to the grid-based system all the time, and to the kind of very closed-in gameplay that we experienced, which is absolutely awesome and at the time was absolutely groundbreaking. But to try and sort of compete in a business environment, as you said, AJ, these companies have got to push the boundaries all the time.
Exactly. It's ironic too, because Crystal Dynamics actually listened a lot to us when it came to Tomb Raider Underworld, but the finished product just, I don't know if it was just they didn't have enough time for it, but the game itself, like the formula, just felt so stale, like we've been there, done that. So I do understand that the Tomb Raider series itself needed to change its formula because it was getting stale.
Same thing with Chronicles. You guys remember that? Yeah.
Well, Chronicles was just a filler, really, wasn't it, between Last Revelation and the brand new next gen Angel of Darkness. This was new
I do
platform,
have to
uncharted territory.
I do have to give them kudos though, because Core Design tried changing the formula with Angel of Darkness. We all know how that went.
Hmm.
And then they tried changing the formula just a tad bit with Underworld, which again was their final game of that saga, and we all know how that went. So it's nice to see them at least move forward in a sense and actually make something that a lot of people can actually pick up, even if we all don't agree that it's what Tomb Raider should be.
I mean, it's almost like there should be somewhere like a style sheet or house rules about, right, what does constitute the core of Tomb Raider? No pun intended with core design, but what is the kernel? What is the absolute spirit of the game and the character and the kind of stories that we're talking about that makes it unique, that makes it special, and that everybody, fans old and new, can relate to? And where outside of that, you're starting to blur the edges with other games like Uncharted and with other genres like the Indiana Jones film trilogies. And, we're starting to get into, it's still a bit of Tomb Raider, but it's also 80% something completely different as well. And when is a Tomb Raider game not a Tomb Raider game? You're starting to get that sort of problem coming up.
Yeah, I think it comes back to how most games are today now. They try to borrow too heavily from what's popular. Like, there's always a debate of Uncharted versus Tomb Raider. And I can, from playing both, I can see what influenced the other. And I think it's absolutely correct that Uncharted and Tomb Raider are constantly borrowing from each other. But it's kind of how it goes in the industry anymore. And we can't really do anything about it because, looking at the business perspective, I get what they're doing.
And AAA gaming nowadays is very much similar to Hollywood in that regard, in that they will find a formula that works, and they'll stick with it for as long as people are willing to give them money for it. But this comes back round to what we were saying about the developers having a responsibility, not just to the source material, but also to the fans of that source material. Because every time they do a reboot, they're not only having to try and honour what came before in terms of gameplay, story, character, but they're also going to try and not piss off their existing fan base.
Ooh,
because that's going to be, even with a new, even with a brand new, hugely popular game release, they still need to attract the core audience. They can't ignore it. It's just too big and too vocal to pass off.
See, that's the main thing, though. They have to use some kind of respect, because I don't know about you guys, and I can't remember exactly who made the comments on Twitter, but somebody, it doesn't help when you have people who are coming in with the reboot, and then you have the writers and stuff basically making sarcastic comments towards, what made Tomb Raider back in the day, calling her the Ice Queen, and, that really fumed me up, because they're always talking about how we can't respect them, but they're coming forward and making derogative comments about what we grew up with.
This is an issue I constantly have. Indeed, I was having a conversation with one of my workmates the other day, and he was referring to the classic series as, oh, that was just all about Lara's tits and her arse, right? And I was like, well, that's not what I got from it at all, and I know a lot of people didn't think of Lara in that kind of respect, but that seems to have been born from the marketing and so on. And some people who were younger at that kind of age, they bought into that, and I can understand that. But we've grown up, we've moved on, and yet the idea of what those classic, it's basically, it's not honoring them for the masterpieces they were as gaming pieces. They're being dismissed as something tawdry almost. And there's this some kind of shame involved with liking those classic games, because of course you must have just liked it for that reason. But no, they were fantastic gaming pieces, and they should be held up as that. But with these new games, of course, it does seem that the common theme has been, okay, you only liked it because of this brunette lady that was at the forefront. Now, of course, Lara was an iconic character, and we all loved her for what she was, but Tomb Raider was more than just Lara Croft. It was the style of the game that I think should have been pulled forward, and that's what I feel has been a little bit lost with all these reboots, quite honestly. And I think that's where a lot of the divisions in the fans have come from. It's it's loving a certain gaming style. We've moved away from puzzle solving and environmental platforming, and we've got more towards an action adventure kind of style with very much Hollywood kind of atmosphere. So I do think that has resulted in just fans of different things trying to come together, and ultimately their tastes are so different that they, as we said, they struggle to find common ground, and then it just ends up in a slanging match.
Yeah. Well, the other side of it, of course, quite apart from what fans in each camp actually think, is how each camp is perceived by the others as well. And this is another thing that the developers themselves hold a certain responsibility for. I'm sure you, Stella, can remember when the Tomb Raider 2013 was sort of still in development, still on the cusp of release, and we had developer interviews with comments like, "This is a Lara that you're going to want to protect.
Forget everything you know
and look out
about
for."
Tomb Raider.
Mhm.
No, I will not.
Exactly.
But anyway, can I just inject
No.
something about the developer interaction with the fans? I understand exactly what you guys are saying, and I agree with you 90%. But I also want to say that the developers are people too, and they make mistakes,
Mhm.
and they put their foot in it. And I do the same thing, so I'm sympathetic. And also when they stay on script and just hit the PR points that they're supposed to hit and don't say anything risky and don't risk putting their foot in it, then a lot of fans tend to make fun of that. Like, oh, she's one with the jungle. She's the apex predator. She's this, she's that. Forget everything you know. And then we're like, oh, yeah, more of that. So I think we need to, as fans, try to humanize the developers. They are individuals. They're not just this monolithic entity.
Mhm.
So,
Far from
again,
it.
agree and disagree. So, 90%, like I said, I agree with what you're saying. But
Yeah, I think that would certainly help if it would help with people not attacking the developers quite so much, because that is always very, very uncomfortable. I mean, by all means, disagree with the direction that they're going in, but as you said, they are people. You shouldn't be trying to rip specific people to shreds over what they're currently doing in with a video game. I mean, ultimately, we do have to say it is a game. It's not life or death, but some people do see it as far more than that and take it a fair bit too far.
and we
quite
should
honestly.
definitely say what we want and what we like and what we don't like. But
Yeah.
it's perfectly possible to do that without attacking somebody or,
Yes,
diminishing
but
someone else who
remaining
might
respectful.
disagree with you.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
looking at you, sipping tea, gift people.
No, this is the thing that always boils down to is respect, isn't it? It's on both sides of the divide. It's across all the different camps of the reboots and the different fandoms that follow it, and between and across the divide between the developers and the fans. If one can have respect for the other, then both benefit from it. It's when we see blatant examples of disrespect, either fans getting so irate, you're wondering, guys, this is a video game, not life or death, as you say it, Matt. Or developers either forgetting themselves or not really appreciating the direction that their words might be interpreted by either an existing camp of fans or by new people coming into the fandom and see what kind of atmosphere is this generating, what kind of ambience is going on here between the fans and the developers. Because at the moment there's a feeling, I'm certainly perceiving that there's a feeling of hostility and a lot of cynicism. There seems to be a lot of praise, a lot of people saying, oh, we can't wait for the new game, we can't wait to see this, we can't wait to play that. But then we've got a hell of a lot of people who are saying, you know what, we've been so disappointed before and so hyped up before that we're just not going to bother anymore. It doesn't matter what people say, whether the developers throw gold dust at our feet, we just don't care anymore. And that's sad. That's really, really bad when the fandom has gotten so cynical and so disillusioned with the franchise.
And when you do
Yeah,
get excited and other people are like, oh, how can you be excited about that? It makes me not want to be gung-ho. It makes me not want to say, yay, I can't wait for this or that.
Yeah.
And I self-censor, and that's sad. Because I am
Yeah,
excited.
you start to, says, yeah, but you feel like you can't say that without being
Yes.
attacked, and you feel like you can't, even voice, guarded caution without being attacked. It's almost as though it doesn't matter what your opinion is. Somebody somewhere in the fandom is going to disagree with you in a really disrespectful and vocal manner. And we've got to address that as fans. We've got to take a step back and think, would I actually say this to this person, to their face, if I was sat across from them in a table having this discussion?
More people need to evaluate before they do that. And, I've been guilty. I don't jump down people's throats, but I have, either, ignored. I tend not to get in people's face, but I just ignore comments that I don't agree with. And I think it may behoove me to engage, but in a positive way.
Yeah. I can't imagine you being aggressive and in people's faces,
not me.
Stella. And, if somebody's really pissing you off, you just ignore them because they're not worth your time.
But maybe they are, like I obviously super trolls, I will block, whatever. But if someone who I normally interact with in a positive way goes over the top, I'm going to make a concerted effort to engage in a positive way and say, I understand what you're saying, but here's how I perceived what you just said. And I don't want to get in an argument, but I want people to know that they need to see how they're coming across, especially in tweets. Like you said, it was just what can you do in a few hundred characters, and how can you not be misinterpreted? But there's got to be a way that we can engage in a positive way and be respectful.
It is tricky. I mean, I recently came across this when a few of us on Survivor Reborn, we wrote a review of the Shadow demo because we got to play it quite recently, and we got some strange comments. Generally positive. We were actually referred to as Uncharted fanboys in one comment, and it just took us completely by surprise. And attempting to engage with this individual yielded absolutely no results. I could not understand the point that he was trying to make, and I tried my best to be respectful. And in the end, just did the usual. Okay, I don't understand you, but have a lovely day.
Sometimes that's all you can do.
There was just nothing else that you could say. Yeah, and it was sad because I thought, I would actually like to have a genuine conversation with you. What is it about the review that you felt came across that way? But the instant reply, because we all had the same kind of reaction, what is it about it that you think came across that way? He reacted with, "Oh, why are you all attacking me? I only made a comment." And it's like, well, that's the whole point. This is a to and fro. You've said something, we're responding to it, and now you don't want to engage. You want to run away and say that you're being hounded. And I don't understand that impulse. If you're going to say something online and people are responding to you quite respectfully, by all means, explain your position. Don't just leave it as a single line, especially on a platform like Facebook where you don't actually have a limit on how much you put in a comment. But yeah, I'm loath to call people like that trolls because I'm sure there was a genuine point behind it, and he was just reluctant to discuss it when he felt that people were coming for him. But I'd like to think that we don't come across as bullies or people that are just going to shout people down who disagree with us, because ultimately we're all very nice people. We'd like to have a chat about these things at the end of the day.
Can I just say thank God for the meme culture, because when everything gets hectic, all we got to do is have some kind of Angel of Darkness meme like Carvier and the Shadow Sun.
Yeah, it's amazing how those things get everybody giggling and forgetting to annoy people. That always helps. So, AJ, would you suggest then that one of the solutions, this issue that the fandom has had with all of its divisions and a lack of clear understanding on all sides, and maybe that's driven by social media, I don't know, but would you say that the onus is not just on fans, but also on the developers to help encourage building bridges?
Yeah, I do. I think it's on everybody, to be honest. Like Stella was saying, it's before anybody posts, they really need to look at what they're typing, say them, would I say this is somebody's face? And that's the big difference, what we're facing now. People aren't thinking before they actually say something. But like I said, at the end of the day, it also comes back to the developers, because with their snarky comments, like the Ice Queen, it's like when it gets quiet, they egg the fans on to get some kind of topic going, even if it's, people jumping down their throats. And they know that's what's going to happen with these comments, because people are very protective of classic Laura.
And it's like Stella was saying, though, that the blessing of social media, like Twitter, is that you can have this instant access to these individuals in development and in these big companies. You know, they stop being these monolithic entities that are just corporate faces. You know, they're not actually personalities. But the downside is that you can also see them as individuals who feel free to post what they like, with the might of the company sort of behind them, and they might sometimes forget, or are caught up in something, and they need also to take a step back and think, well, I'm addressing the fandom, and I need to be respectful to all comers in it, not just the part that I really like, and I'm not trying to poke fun publicly at another section. So everybody needs to bear some responsibility for this.
Exactly. I think it all comes back to, too, what Stella said about people, necessarily treating the developers actually like humans. They do screw up, we all do. But there's a difference between screwing up and, keep doing the same mistake, even if it's a different person. Just have the guts to actually come out and say, I screwed up. Let's move on.
And to also to the fans that are, in the minority of extremely vocal defenders of their Tomb Raider, that they perceive to be the only Tomb Raider worth knowing, at the same time, that group also needs to take responsibility and say, is my life so long and varied that I can afford to piss people off for liking something that I don't particularly connect with? You said a few minutes ago, Stella, that there needs to be more of a live and let live tolerance in the fandom as a whole.
So. I mean, in any fandom, really, but yeah.
So what sort of, in kind of closing for this episode, what kind of solutions do you think you personally would like to see for this to kind of build bridges within the fandom and help to sort of heal these divisions between the fandoms and between the developers?
Me? Anybody?
Go
I
ahead.
have a
Go
few
ahead,
ideas, and I'm still in process with this. Like I said, I just posted that tweet a few days ago, and it stirred up some good ideas, but I'm hoping that other people will respond, and when they hear this, they might respond. And I think the best I can do personally is to be welcoming and inclusive myself, which I always am, but I will try extra hard to do that.
Well as well.
And also to start up some projects or promote other people's projects that promote inclusion. Like recently, a friend of mine started a new blog called Positively Tomb Raider, and her goal is to highlight cool stuff, good stuff, positive, inclusive stuff that's going on in the community. And yay, go visit that site for sure. And then the other thing that I do personally is Extra Life. Every year I do, I'm the captain of a Tomb Raider fan team that raises money for Children's Miracle Network hospitals, and that's Extra Life. And I know AJ now is part of a different team. He's a trader, and he's left us to go do Residents of Evil, which is fine. The more the merrier. But that's something I try to do to bring fans together. And we are a team of many different facets of the fandom. Lots of us are classics fans. Many of us are new fans. And we come together to do a project that, helps a charity. And I think that we are able to overlook our differences and, come together for a good cause. And I hope more people do more of that.
Absolutely. And you have done just extraordinary work over the years doing that. I keep seeing your names popping up in my Twitter feed and so on and so on. So and so has just donated such and such to this cause and so on. And you've raised a huge amount of money.
This is my seventh.
You've also raised.
This is my seventh year with it, and I'm going to keep on going as long as they keep having it. And I think the Tomb Raider team as a whole has raised over $20,000 so far. It's not a whole lot, but we're about 20 people each year, and we're doing a good job, I think. And I invite anybody who wants to get involved in that to contact me for details.
We'll leave the details in the description. So if anybody is listening to this and would like to get involved and contact you, then it should be easier for them. What about you, AJ? What sort of things would you like to see the fandom doing or the developers doing to help heal some of these divisions?
Honestly, I just wish the developers would be more transparent when it comes to the fans. like I said earlier about like the whole Ice Queen thing, I just want to see the fans get along a bit more and stop jumping down each other's throats so much. Think before you speak. But there's, like Stella said, there's a long way to go, and there's a lot of things to go over yet, so I'm gonna basically just say I agree with Stella.
Be the change you want to see. Be the change.
Indeed. In for the long haul as well. Yeah. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I'm very much in the same kind of wavelength here, quite honestly. People just need to focus on the positives, focus on what you enjoy. Don't try and tear down anyone else's enjoyment just because your opinion differs. It's very much, just do what you like to do, live and let live, and if someone cocks up and they say something or express themselves in a way, by all means, just give them a nudge and say, maybe think about what you've just said and maybe, don't do it next time, or consider wording it slightly differently next time.
And also,
not be quite so aggressive.
Let me stress, responding to toxicity with more toxicity does not help the situation. That's why we have the mute function on Twitter.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if you do come across something and someone who clearly doesn't want to help build bridges, after all, bridges have got two ends, you've got to meet in the middle somewhere. If you come across that, you can only do so much. You've got to also acknowledge that your time needs to be spent helping promote positivity. And if you meet somebody who's clearly not responsive to that, then go away and put your energy somewhere where it is going to make a difference. Like you said, Stella, support fan projects, support writers and artists and modders and all these other creative types who are trying to give something back to the community and spread a bit of positivity around instead of just constantly bickering or attacking, either because they really loathe something or because they feel super defensive. And I think both of those camps need to just sort of take a deep breath and go, it's a video game, it's brilliant, but I also need to know that there are human beings on the end of this, and it's not just some faceless person on Twitter.
That's actually a good point.
I can just attack with impunity.
Bring up as well. Most people group Crystal Dynamics into one entity when it is so many people that we don't even get to see half the time. It's only 5 or 6 at the time.
That's why I love when they do the developer diaries, because then you do get to see a face and you do get to hear how they are so excited about the thing they're working on, and they're doing the best they can to make it as awesome as they can. And that's, that enthusiasm to me is contagious. And I understand that people miss the classic stuff and they miss, their era, whatever that was. But we can't go back in time. We can do fan projects and we can make our things, our tributes, and keep playing the old games and mod them and do all that, which is great. And I love all of it. But so many people are fans of the new stuff and they love the direction that it's going now and they're perfectly happy. So I think that we need to, recognize that.
And let's not forget, Classic Tomb Raider will never go away. The level editor is still alive and kicking.
Yeah. Well, not even just the level editor, is it, AJ? I mean, you have
Nicobase.
Not just, I was going to say Nicobase, who, isn't just recreating a classic game in the classic engine with the classic tools, actually bringing the classics into a new era of more modern style of gaming and more modern style of gameplay and engine technology. So, the fandom is so vast that even just to say a classic fan can mean many whole can of craziness that opens up and explodes in different directions. So I think we need to all of us, developers and fans, just take a step back and realize that even though we have so much different opinions, we all have one in common, which is we love Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Thanks ever so much for coming here to talk with us today, Stella. And thanks to AJ and Matt from the Survivor Reborn team. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to Survivor Reborn's channel and social media feeds. Links in the description. Happy raiding.